Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. Today we're doing part 2 of the Winds of Magic, or Malign Sorcery. We're doing the Aether Void Pendulum, Umbral Spell Portal, and Soul Share We're doing these chains. So we already prepped them up for priming. We're going to prime them with Bright Touch Gray Car Primer, and then we're going to start with the Aether Void Pendulum. Now, starting with the Aether Void Pendulum, I'm going to start off by being inspired by the art. Now, I look at it and I see a giant red axe pendulum thing. And it's pretty simple, but it's a bit dull, kind of. And so, I'm going to basically be inspired by this. I'm not going to follow this to the T because it's too plain. So what I'm going to do is, essentially, I'm going to make it red, essentially. And so that's the overall idea with this, red. So we're going to start off with Uriel Yellow, and then we're going to start by painting all these flames that are on it yellow. And this takes a while. I use brush, I use airbrush, and it takes a while because the yellow is translucent and it takes a while for it to get a good coverage. And then with Iron Warriors, Iron Hand Steel, and Iron Breaker, we're going to paint the pendulum itself. We're going to start off by painting all the metal Iron Warriors as a strong base. Then we're going to take Iron Hand Steel and we're going to dry brush pretty much the entire thing, focusing on the edges as well so that we can see those straight lines where the folds are, and the blades as well. Then we'll take Iron Breaker and do a little bit of dry brushing with it, and then we'll also paint directly onto the edges of the blades and some raised areas, folds, and stuff like that. And it's just a process of getting it right. Now, what I tried was with Corn Red and Evil Sun Scarlet, I was going to airbrush the model. And so I started with Corn Red and I airbrushed it from the base, from the bottom area, pointing upwards. And so if you look down, you would still see the metal, but it would have this dark red everywhere. And I would also focus heavily on the yellow, make it look like fire. And then I would take Evil Sun Scarlet and do the same thing again, with a little more emphasis on towards some areas on the blade. And looking at it, like, it is red. The fire is there, you can see the highlighting and stuff like that, you can see still see some of the metal, but I think I overdid it a bit too much. I should have been lighter on the red paint for the metal. And so to fix that, I went back with Iron Hand Steel and I dry brushed lightly onto some areas of the pendulum to bring out some of the metal more. Alright, moving on. We're going to move on to the chains. Now, based off the artwork, they are metal, they're a bit bronzed, and they have like fire coming out of their base. Alright, we're gonna work with that. Now, I haven't glued them together because essentially how they work is that their bases, they glue onto the bases and that's what really adheres them. There's really nothing that adheres them to each other, the two halves. They're basically two halves that fit together, but they really fit together on the base, because there's no physical contact, really, barely any. So it'd be pointless to glue them, as well as if I did, it would just get in the way of painting. And now with Iron Warriors, Iron Hand Steel, and Iron Breaker, we're going to paint the chains. Now, I forgot to get footage of Iron Warrior, so it's already painted with that. Basically what I do is I dry brush / overbrush Iron Hand Steel on their most upper raised areas, and then with Iron Breakers I do a very light dry brushing on its most raised areas up top. And now with a 1-to-1 mix of Lamian Medium and Skeleton Horde Contrast, we are going to, bronze the metal, basically. Now with Evil Sunz Scarlet, Uriel Yellow, and Dorn Yellow, we're going to apply the fire. We're going to use an airbrush for this. So with Evil Sunz Scarlet, we're going to paint from the bottom up the patches of red. We're mostly focusing towards where they pop out of the ground. Then we're going to go with Uriel Yellow, and we apply this lightly over the red. We don't want to cover the whole model with this. And in some areas, I do a little extra Uriel Yellow so that the color is more bright and more focused. And then I take Dorn Yellow and I mix between a dry brush and an overbrush and just apply it on the edges of the chains on the bottom half. And because of the sharp angles of the chains, this looks like very sharp highlights, and it looks good. Now with Citadel Air Runefang Steel, because it's the only good Runefang Steel they produce, get the Air version, not the regular version. And I basically do the same thing and dry brush / overbrush onto the chains on the upper half of the, away from the ground, and just the edges of the chains and stuff, and it makes some nice highlights. And the chains come out with these very sharp highlights because they're sharp angles and stuff. And the coloration and the bronzing is there. I didn't really have any good bronzing colors for this. I just only have like 1 or 2, and that would be too extreme. So, well, the chains look fine actually. We're not going to do the ground because the bases will be done in another video. Moving on to Umbral Spell Portal. What we can see is dark blues, some light blues, some very light blues, and some brass and brown. And so, we move with that. Now with Cantor Blue, Hoeth Blue, and Fenrisian Gray, I'm going to paint the smoke first. We're going to start with the base layer of Cantor Blue all over, including the inside mirror. And then with an airbrush and Hoeth Blue, we're going to airbrush at a very fine angle, high angle, and so to try to just hit the little waves in the mirror. This doesn't work too well though. And then we apply it onto the smoke and fire, whichever it is, coming out of the mirrors. And then we go with Fenrisian Gray and we do the same thing with the mirror, painting it or airbrushing it at a high angle to try to pick out the little waves in it, and also on the smoke. And now with Baharoth Blue and Ulthuan Gray, we're going to work on the mirror. So with Baharoth Blue, we're going to dry brush this, and it's going to pick out the waves, and it's a bit messy. And then with Ulthuan Gray, we're going to do the same thing, a lighter dry brushing, picking out these little waves that are on the mirror. But in the end, it's not clean, essentially. It's a little dirty, dusty. It's not very refined. So we're going to try to fix this. So we're going to use an oil paint, French Ultramarine. And then we're going to apply this, slightly dilute all over. It's basically thick. It's just a more watered down paint, not really a wash. And apply this all over. Then we're going to take a bunch of makeup sponges and remove it. So originally the fire looked pretty grayish, but with this it's going to add a blue tinge in towards it, and it's going to add a little bit more depth. It's very subtle. I didn't notice this until I was re-editing it, but it does make the smoke look bluer. However, it does not fix our problem with the mirrors. They still look dirty. Alright, I got nothing, so I'm just going to go with something cheap and simple. With a 1-to-1 mix of Drakenhof Nightshade and Lamian Medium, we're going to apply this into the middle of the mirror, and so basically, it's going to help clean it up heavily. Although it'll darken the mirror, this is going to help a bit. And now with Doombull Brown and Pallid Witch Flesh, we're going to work on the mirror. We're going to do the browning. So with Doombull Brown, we're going to apply this to the logo emblem there, and the area around the mirror that has skulls. Then what we're going to do is just going to add a little bit of Pallid Witch Flesh into the Doombull Brown lightly, and we're just going to highlight the head thing, lion face up there, and then we're going to add a little more of Pallid Witch Flesh and just highlight it more. It's just a mix. I'm not really sure how much I added in it, because I kept swirling the colors until they got a color that I liked, so have fun with it. And now with Retributor Gold and Liberator Gold, we're going to paint the gold. And I'm going to say Retributor Gold is a really nice, solid gold color. My goodness. And basically we just paint everything that we haven't painted with this. And then with Liberator Gold, we're just going to paint streaks and patches all around, like all the upper faces and stuff. We're basically painting 95 to 99% of the entire thing in this. When it comes to the little skulls, we're just like putting a little streak on them, and as far as the edges of the mirror and stuff, we're just like painting like streaks here and there. There's no real full rhyme or reason. It's just you're going to see like a streak of Retributor and then a streak of Liberator and back and forth on those edges, and so it looks good. And with AK Interactive Ultra Matte Varnish, we're going to apply this to the mirrors and the smoke. We're not touching the metal, although I should have actually done this already before I did the metals, just in case of accidental spillover, but oh well. And I also did this off camera, but I also did the fire on the Pendulum. And kind of done. So the bases I'm continuing on will be a separate thing, and I have good reason for that. One, I'm lazy, but second, I think but second, I have another. The bases are going to be all custom made with 3D printing and stuff, so I want to dedicate a video to that because I'm going to make it a bit more customized. And so overall, I just remembered I didn't actually do the backdrop for this because I've been on vacation and I completely forgot everything of how to do everything when I was gone. Well, whatever. And so, overall rating, the Pendulum, okay, so using the inspiration of red, yeah, I got that, but looking back, maybe there was a way I could have done a more translucent red, and I believe I have done something like that before. I could have probably used like a wash or something, or no, a contrast paint, a red contrast paint to make it red and shiny instead of red and matte. And so, as for the Aethervoid Pendulum, I'm gonna probably give it a 7. It was ruined in planning. I followed the basic inspiration, or that I was inspired by the page, but looking back, there are probably some different things I could have done to make it red and shiny and translucent so the metal would shine more. Oh well. As far as the chains, they're actually pretty well done. I was quite surprised, actually. Chains, the metal was getting a bit dull, but when I added the fire and the edging and highlighting and stuff, they looked really good. And so those came out pretty good. And as far as the umbral spell portals, the smoke was losing character, but the oil wash actually did help. I thought it didn't do anything until then. The mirrors themselves were a bit dirty and stuff, and I was able to fix them with the cheap technique because I can't really paint these curved circles well. I tried, but I just kept screwing them up. And so I just used the dry brushing and the simple Drakenhof Nightshade Lamian Medium Wash to help fix and tighten things up, clean them up. And the gold looks really, really good. Even though it's not the best highlighting, I could have gone further with like Runefang Steel Air to highlight some edges and stuff, but I thought, like, nah, there's no real need. The gold is nice enough as it is. And so for the Umbral Spell Portals, I'm probably going to give a solid 8. Oh, the chains are probably going to be a 9. It just turned out really well. Alright, so 6, 8, and 9. Alright, I'm going to continue to knock out all these small projects. I just heard the Custodians and the Gene Stealer cults are getting a box in December, so I actually want to get that. So I'm going to be knocking out a bunch of these smaller projects and things on the side, as well as Magakin's getting a new tome. That's going to be excellent. And one new model. Well, I'll adapt. Alright then, so like the video if you like the video, share if you want to share it, comment if you want to comment, like if you like it, dislike if you disliked it, and I'll be back much sooner because I have a bunch of small projects to knock out. And bye.